Picture this for a second. Right now, in this exact moment, there's a man somewhere thinking about you more than he'd ever admit out loud. He can't shake your face from his mind. Your name pops up in his thoughts multiple times a day, even if he's trying his best to hide it. Or maybe he can't even fully own up to it himself. His body, his little habits, the energy he gives off, all of it has already given the truth away. He's genuinely falling for you, and you might not have even noticed yet. Why not? Because your whole life you've been trained to listen for words, for promises, for clear declarations, but real masculine desire doesn't usually announce itself that way. It hides inside a quieter code, a language so subtle that most women never learn to read it properly. What I'm about to walk you through is going to change how you see relationships and the male mind for good. There's a blind spot most of us have. We listen to words, and we miss the unconscious signals happening right underneath them. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the last century, uncovered something remarkable about how men actually process love, something most women go their whole lives without ever learning. When a man truly falls for a woman, something shifts in his unconscious that's completely outside his control. It starts leaking out through involuntary signals that are almost impossible to fake convincingly. Here's the tragedy in all of this. Most women completely misread these cues. They mix up genuine, deep interest with someone who's just playing around, or worse, they write off men who are quietly, deeply in love simply because they never learned to recognize this hidden language of male desire. Have you ever had that odd gut feeling, that sense that something doesn't line up, when a man tells you he's interested but his actions are telling a completely different story? Or maybe it's the reverse. He never puts his feelings into words, but something in you just knows there's a real connection there. That's not your imagination running wild. That's your unconscious mind picking up on signals your conscious brain hasn't caught up to yet. This isn't some seduction trick or manipulation tactic I'm about to hand you. It's something much more grounded than that. It's the actual truth of what happens inside a man's mind when he meets a woman who stirs up more than just physical attraction, a connection that goes beyond logic entirely. There's a pattern to it, a kind of secret language hidden in a man's gestures, his glances, his silences, and the way he behaves once he's genuinely emotionally invested. Once you learn to read these signs, you'll never again feel confused or misled about where a man's head really is. The problem is that most women are watching the wrong things entirely. They're waiting around for some big romantic declaration, when really, the truth is sitting in all the small, quiet details. Jung discovered something he called the lover archetype. Inside every man, according to Jung, there lives this archetype, a powerful, primal force that, once switched on, completely reshapes his behavior in ways even he doesn't fully understand. It's not something he can perform or fake. It's an instinctive, deeply rooted response coming from the oldest layers of the male unconscious. What I'm sharing with you here could genuinely reshape how you look at the men in your life. It might confirm things you've already sensed intuitively, but never had the words to explain. Pay close attention, because these signs are subtle, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. A man might try to downplay what he feels, explain it away, or even deny it outright, but his body and his consistent actions will always tell the real story. There's a massive gap between a man who's only physically attracted to you and a man who's actually emotionally invested. One disappears the second things get hard. The other leans in closer. One keeps you spinning in cycles of doubt and second-guessing. The other builds something stable and safe underneath you. One is only thinking about right now. The other is already imagining you somewhere down the road, in his future. Before I keep going with everything that's about to reshape how you see men and relationships, I want to ask something of you. If any of this is resonating, drop a comment below saying the word perception, just to show you're genuinely here for the deeper stuff. That small act of writing it out does something. It primes your brain to actually absorb what comes next, almost like flipping a mental switch that opens the door wider. Have you ever wondered why certain women seem to attract real commitment without even trying, while others get stuck cycling through one shallow situationship after another? The answer isn't about looks. It's not really about what they say or do on a conscious level either. It runs much deeper than that. It comes down to whether or not they can recognize and respond to the unconscious signals a man gives off when he's genuinely emotionally involved. Jung, after decades spent studying the human psyche, found that a huge portion of male behavior is driven by forces that sit well outside conscious control. He called these universal behavioral patterns archetypes, primitive, inherited images passed down through humanity's collective history that quietly shape how we feel, think, and act. One of the most powerful of these archetypes living inside the male psyche is the lover. When this part of a man wakes up, something remarkable happens. He's not just casually interested or physically attracted anymore. He's connected on a level that doesn't run through logic at all. It's like something old and powerful stirs awake inside him, reshaping how he behaves even when he has no conscious idea it's happening. The complication is that modern culture has spent generations teaching men to bury their emotions from childhood on. Men don't cry. Be strong. Don't show weakness. Those messages, repeated over and over since boyhood, build a wall between what a man actually feels and what he's able to put into words. That's exactly why so many men, even the ones who are deeply, genuinely in love, struggle to just say it out loud. But here's the part Jung found fascinating. The body doesn't lie. While the conscious mind can filter, edit, and control what comes out of someone's mouth, the unconscious mind gives itself away through physical and behavioral signals that are nearly impossible to fake convincingly. That's the real secret, the quiet, physical language of behavior that most women were never taught to interpret. Think about a man in your own life who seems to send mixed signals. Maybe he says he's interested, then goes quiet for days at a time. Or maybe he never actually talks about his feelings, but he's always the one who shows up when you need him most. Which one of those is actually emotionally invested? Words can be twisted or exaggerated. Consistent actions rarely lie. Recent neuroscience actually backs up what Jung suspected decades ago. When a man is genuinely falling in love, his brain chemistry shifts in a very specific way. A unique blend of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin floods his system, and that cocktail directly shapes patterns of behavior he can't consciously override. Dopamine is tied to reward and pleasure. When a man is truly invested, his brain starts linking your presence with that dopamine hit, which creates something close to an addictive pull toward wanting to be near you. It's not some calculated decision on his part. It's a chemical response quietly steering him toward seeking you out, even when other things are competing for his time and attention. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, gets released during moments of real emotional and physical closeness. This hormone literally builds a biochemical bond, creating an instinctive pull in him to protect you, care for you, and stay close. It's not a coincidence that a genuinely involved man tends to show protective instincts. That's his biology responding to a real emotional attachment forming underneath the surface. When most of us try to figure out how a man feels, we lean on what he says, his words, his promises, his declarations. But Jung's work suggests that approach misses the most important layer of male desire entirely. The real depth of how a man feels is hidden underneath a silent language, expressed not through speech, but through unconscious signals and consistent behavior. This is a code that most women never learn to read properly, largely because men are conditioned early on to hide what they feel, to project strength, and to suppress anything that looks like vulnerability. Words can be managed and controlled. The body, much less so. The lover archetype is about more than sexual attraction. It's a connection that reaches past physical desire into something older and more powerful sitting inside a man's psyche. It creates a genuine pull toward closeness, protection, and emotional intimacy. When this part of him wakes up, he's not just after your body. He wants to actually know you, to be near you, to fold you into the fabric of his everyday life. But modern life makes this harder than it should be. Plenty of men are deeply in love and simply terrified to say it out loud. So instead, their feelings show up in involuntary ways. How they look at you, how they rearrange their time and space around you, the small gestures that quietly reveal just how present they've become. Learning to read this silent language changes everything for a woman. It lets her see past the surface and tell the difference between a man who's truly invested and one who's just going through the motions or offering something shallow. Let's talk about the difference between physical attraction and real emotional involvement because it matters a lot. Physical attraction hits fast. It's built on chemistry, looks, and desire. It can feel intense in the moment, but it's often short-lived. A man can feel that pull toward several women at once. That kind of interest tends to stay on the surface and doesn't hold much weight. Emotional involvement is different. It builds slowly, over time, as a man gradually folds a woman into his inner world. Once the lover archetype switches on, his focus narrows down to one person. She becomes a source of comfort, a piece of his identity, a fixture in how he imagines his future. This confuses a lot of women, because sometimes a man will say all the right things while acting completely inconsistently, and other times he'll stay quiet about his feelings while his actions reveal something much deeper. Learning to spot the difference between real emotional investment and shallow attraction can save a woman from a whole lot of confusion and heartbreak down the line. Jung also talked about synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that don't have an obvious cause but still feel significant. A deep connection is built through unconscious bonds, emotional presence, vulnerability, and authentic behavior, rather than words or manipulation. Inspired by Carl Jung's ideas, the message explores the lover archetype, feminine energy, and how true relationships grow through trust, balance, self-awareness, and genuine emotional connection. When a woman learns to read this silent language and steps fully into her own feminine energy, it doesn't just change her relationships. It changes her entire relationship with love itself. In the end, this understanding transforms love from some idealized fantasy into something lived and real. Instead of chasing the romanticized version of love we see in movies, it becomes something grounded, deep, and mutual. A man's lover archetype paired with a woman's authentic feminine energy creates a kind of alchemy that brings two people into real harmony. It's not always smooth or perfect, but it's real, and that's worth far more. Now that you understand how this dynamic between masculine and feminine energy actually works, let's get into the 8 clear signs that reveal when a man is genuinely emotionally invested, signs that are nearly impossible to fake because they come straight from his unconscious mind. Learning to spot these can save you years of confusion, heartbreak, and misread signals. They give you a much clearer lens to see past empty words and into what he's actually feeling. The first sign lives in the eyes. Jung called the eyes the window to the soul, and modern neuroscience backs that up with research on pupil dilation and involuntary gaze patterns. When a man is genuinely falling for someone, his eyes show a kind of recognition that goes beyond just noticing someone attractive. He doesn't just glance. He looks like he's trying to memorize every detail of your face. His pupils dilate without him meaning to, a reflex his body simply can't control, giving away exactly how he feels. Even more telling is catching him watching you when he thinks you're not looking. That quiet, almost reverent gaze is him seeing you as something deeply significant, not just something to desire in passing. The second sign shows up in how he manages his time and physical space around you. A man who's genuinely invested will unconsciously rearrange parts of his life to make room for you. He won't vanish for days without a word or make constant excuses for being absent. Instead, he'll shift his schedule, reorder his priorities, and carve out time to be near you, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wants to. Physically, his body orients toward you, even in a crowded room. His feet, his posture, his attention naturally drift your way. Small, casual touches, like a hand briefly on your arm, reveal a real desire for closeness. These little physical choices are tied to oxytocin release, a biological marker of genuine attachment. The third sign is a kind of selective memory. You occupy real estate in his mind. A man who's truly invested tends to remember small details about you almost effortlessly. Jung would describe this as the unconscious filtering what actually matters to him. He remembers the book you mentioned once in passing, exactly how you take your coffee, your birthday, the fears and dreams you've quietly shared with him. These details don't just float through his conscious mind and disappear. They settle somewhere deeper, taking up real space in his unconscious. When he brings up something you barely remember saying yourself, that's a strong signal you matter to him on a much deeper level than surface attraction would explain. The fourth sign is emotional vulnerability, him lowering his guard around you. Real emotional investment tends to show up as a willingness to share fears, insecurities, and dreams. Since so much of society still teaches men to hide their emotions, this kind of openness is genuinely rare and meaningful. When a man opens up about a worry at work, shares a dream he usually keeps to himself, or lets you glimpse a side of him he normally keeps hidden, it means he trusts you on a deep level. Jung would call this exposing the shadow, revealing the parts of himself the world doesn't usually get to see. That kind of openness signals real connection and emotional safety. The fifth sign is social integration, you becoming part of his actual world. A man who's genuinely invested naturally wants to fold you into every part of his life. He introduces you to the people closest to him, mentions you to his family, brings you along to things that matter to him. He's not hiding you or keeping your existence quiet. Instead, he takes pride in having you there and wants the people in his life to know about you. This kind of social integration is his unconscious mind signaling that you've become an important, irreplaceable part of who he is. The sixth sign is future projection, you showing up in how he imagines what's ahead. One of the clearest signs isn't a grand promise, but concrete plans that naturally include you. A man who's emotionally committed pictures a future where you're part of the path forward. Whether he's mentioning a trip months down the line, talking through his life goals, or picturing a home together someday, he's folding you into how he imagines his life unfolding. This isn't pressure or manipulation, it's simply what genuine emotional investment naturally produces. The seventh sign is a real protective instinct rooted in genuine care. Protection often gets misread as control or possessiveness, but real protection comes from something Jung might call the unconscious guardian instinct. A man who's truly invested shows authentic concern for your well-being. He notices when your mood shifts, anticipates what you might need, and offers help without expecting anything back. This protective pull is an automatic, almost biological response, not some calculated move. It's a sign you've become genuinely precious to him. The eighth and final sign is consistency over time, the real test of whether all this is authentic. A man can fake attention or affection for a short stretch, but over weeks and months, his true feelings show up through steady, reliable behavior. He won't run hot and cold. He won't disappear without explanation. His energy, his interest, his presence stay stable, proving what he feels is real and not just infatuation or convenience. Understanding these 8 signs gives you the ability to see past surface-level words and actions entirely. You can tell the difference between a man who's genuinely emotionally invested and one who's just offering something fleeting. This knowledge frees you from sitting around in doubt, waiting for some grand declaration to finally believe what's already right in front of you. You can trust these quiet, unconscious signals to tell you the truth. And when you find a man who consistently shows all 8 of these signs, you're looking at something rare, a connection that goes beyond physical attraction and into something closer to soul-level resonance. Do any of these signs sound familiar from your own experience? Or have you lived through the frustration of mixed signals that left you second-guessing his real intentions? It's worth taking a moment to reflect on your past relationships through this lens. Now that you understand the deeper psychology behind male emotional investment and how to spot the real signs of genuine love, there's one last question left. How do you actually inspire a man to reach this level of depth and help him stay there? The answer isn't about force, manipulation, or playing games. It's about creating an environment where his unconscious mind feels safe, respected, and genuinely drawn to you. Start by embracing your feminine energy without losing yourself in the process. Men are naturally drawn to emotional polarity, and when you fully step into your authentic feminine essence, not as a performance, but as something real, it activates his lover archetype. This isn't about being submissive or powerless, it's about emotional openness, creativity, and the ability to nurture real connection. When you carry warmth, emotional intelligence, and grounded confidence, you wake up his instinct to protect and cherish you. Practice being receptive instead of constantly pursuing. Chasing or overextending yourself tends to throw off the energy balance and often pushes men into retreat because pursuit tends to trigger a masculine instinct to pull away and reclaim space. Instead, aim for a kind of strategic openness, staying engaged and responsive without overextending yourself. When a man senses you're available but not desperate, he naturally wants to invest more. Freedom paired with real intimacy is what lets the lover archetype thrive. Too much control smothers desire. Too much distance breeds insecurity. Balance really is everything here. Match his emotional depth instead of overexposing your own too early. A common misstep is oversharing too fast. Emotional honesty matters, but timing matters too. Opening up too much too soon can overwhelm a man's unconscious defenses, especially before he's fully engaged. Instead, pace things, mirror his level of openness, and let intimacy build gradually as trust develops. That rhythm feels exciting and safe instead of rushed. Respect his independence while still inviting real connection. A man's sense of masculine identity is closely tied to his freedom and sense of purpose. When he feels trapped or controlled, something in him rebels instinctively. Counterintuitively, the more you respect his autonomy, the more he wants to stay close on his own terms. Instead of trying to hold on to him, become the person he keeps choosing again and again, because being near you feels expansive rather than confining. Keep a little bit of mystery alive without creating actual confusion. This isn't about playing games or being deceptive. It's about holding on to layers of depth that invite him to keep exploring who you are. When you have your own passions, goals, and experiences outside the relationship, you stay genuinely interesting, and that naturally holds his attention. Familiarity builds comfort, but curiosity is what keeps desire alive. Communicate what you need with grace instead of ultimatums. Men often pull back the moment they sense hostility or pressure in how something's communicated. Instead, use language that invites connection rather than assigning blame. Rather than saying, "You never make time for me," try something like, "I really love when we get to spend time together. It makes me feel so close to you." That small shift turns a potential argument into an invitation for closeness instead. Invest in your own sense of worth and emotional independence. The most powerful way to draw out a man's deep love is to already embody the qualities you're hoping to experience with him. When you carry a rich inner life, emotional steadiness, and a strong sense of self-worth, you radiate the kind of energy that draws real commitment. A man feels safe investing emotionally when he senses you won't fall apart under the weight of his love, that you're already whole, not searching for someone to complete you. And finally, know when it's time to walk away. Not every man is ready for this level of emotional depth, and that's simply a reality you have to accept sometimes. Your role was never to force someone's transformation, only to invite it. If a man keeps showing avoidance, disrespect, or emotional unavailability no matter what you try, the most self-respecting choice is to walk away. That's not weakness. It's the clearest possible statement of your own worth. And ironically, that very act of walking away is often what wakes a man up to what he's about to lose, because it signals real strength, real boundaries, and real authenticity. Here's the truth underneath all of this. Love was never meant to feel like a game of chance. Everything covered here, the male unconscious, the lover archetype, the 8 telling signs, and the steps toward sustaining real emotional depth, comes down to one simple idea. Love isn't random. It's a psychological and even spiritual dance between 2 different energies. Once you actually understand the rhythm of that dance, you stop stumbling through it and start moving with real intention. You now have a much clearer way to read a man's true feelings without endless second-guessing, to inspire deeper devotion without begging or chasing after it, and to build something rooted in security, real passion, and mutual respect. The only real question left is whether you'll just file this away, or actually put it into practice and let it reshape your love life going forward.